Sheela Masand, welcome to Unbroken.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to find the three principles?
Well, I don't know how far back in time we need to go. But just to say that I live in Spain, so I am British, and I've lived in Spain since 1986, which was a long time ago. Yeah, I was married and had two beautiful daughters, and along the way, I got divorced. That's one thing. But along the way, I became self-employed. It's one of those things I always knew in the back of my mind. My dad was very entrepreneurial, and I kind of always had this sense that I would one day have my own business. I mean, I didn't set out my career-wise to do that, but it serendipitously and landed in my lap to join up with somebody, become in partnership, and open a British food and drink import business here in Spain, which I never thought I would do that. And it was very, very successful, like super successful, in the sense that we ended up with 20 employees, a warehouse, 5 vans on the road, and yeah, it was very, very, very successful in its day. And then unfortunately, my business partner died at a very young age. He was only 48, very unexpectedly, and left me with this business that I didn't. By this time, a few years had gone by, and I was already sort of exploring other things that I wanted to do. I'd become vegetarian, so importing bacon and sausages and pork pies from the UK wasn't really sitting very well with me anymore. And I was like, I need to be doing something, and I wanted to do something alternative in the helping field. And I'd sort of come across coaching, and I was exploring different modalities. And as I say, we'd already decided I was going to become a silent partner in this business that we had that was flourishing. But then, as I say, he died, and I ended up with this business I didn't really want, because legally I had to take it on. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to, because there were all these people relying on me, telling me they had mortgages to pay, etc., etc. And then the recession hit, hard times hit, and things didn't go so well. So I ended up with a lot of debt. And the reason I'm sort of, this is the backstory, is because this is how I came into the three principles. In my journey of looking for what was my next step in terms of my career or business, I bumped into an NLP coaching course out here in Spain, and I did that. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I ended up joining Jamie Smart's email list, because he was one of the best NLPers around at the time. And little did I know at that point in time that he'd started to change courses, because he had come across the three principles. But I didn't know that, and neither did anybody else on his email list, really. So this email drops into my inbox saying, bear in mind I was in financial distress at this point in time, lots of debt, and didn't know how I was going to get out of it. So this email lands into my inbox saying, if the secret's so great, show me the money. So he was playing. I mean, he's a very clever man in terms of wording, an NLP thing as well. But if people don't know, The Secret was all about the law of attraction. It was a book and a movie, and I'd looked in that direction as well, and nothing had worked for me. So I was curious. I thought, okay, he's going to teach me. And what he was doing, he was selling a DVD set. He recorded a 2-day event in the UK that he'd done in London, and said, right, buy the recording. So me being in Spain was okay, I can do that. So I send off the DVD set, sit down in my living room with my then partner. We start watching, and I'm expecting him to show me how to create loads of money, and there's some magic way of creating money. However, there wasn't anything in there much like that. It was all about, looking back on it, it was all about pointing us in the direction of the three principles, which actually was far more value to me, far more value. And people will talk about something being moved or being touched, I didn't realize at the time that that's what happened to me. But in retrospect, I can see that's what happened. On a sort of intellectual level, what I heard really clearly that was like, whoa, I've never seen that before, was when he talked about life only working one way. 100% of the time, we're creating our own experience. 100% of the time. It wasn't that through, personal development stuff that I'd done and the NLP and the coaching course that I knew that money didn't bring me happiness. I kind of got that. But this idea that it's 100% always that way and never another way really piqued my curiosity. I was like, really? And at the end of the 2 days, he left us with, don't take my word for it. Go into your own life, look, test it out, see if it's true. That's what I suggest you do. Mm-hmm. So I did, being the good girl that I am, did my homework, and started really looking like, seriously, am I creating my own experience? Or is, at the time I had a partner who would very often leave his socks on the floor, wherever they were taken off. And I know I'm bringing this up because it's women always laugh about it. It's like a common husband problem, right? Like they just, drop clothes wherever they are. And so it's like, where is it the socks that are creating my upset? Is it the socks on the floor really frustrating me, not to use any foul language? Is it the sort, and what I noticed was it wasn't every day. I didn't feel like that every day. Sometimes I would just dismiss it. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Other times I'd just kind of smile and go, it's done that again. And other days I was really annoyed. So it was like, well, there was so the fact that it wasn't always the same reaction told me very clearly that, this is really an inside out world. We are creating our own experience 100% of the time. And so in this 2-day event, Jamie had said, I'm going to put on another few of these in the next year. I can't remember if he said 3 or 4 more. I remember turning to my partner and saying, next time he does one of these, I'm going. So that was when I say I was touched, it was really like, I'm going. And I went over to London. I think it was 3 times in a row. Every time he did one of those events, I just wanted to be back in the room. And the really curious thing about that is that he didn't say anything too much different every time I went. It was always pointing, talking about the principles in different ways, but that was the message. But I just see that my heart kept drawing me and taking me back. There was something for me, and I was so taken by it that I wanted to start. By this time I've got some coaching clients, I didn't know how to share it with them. And I could go on, the story could go on and on and on about how I'm doing where I am today, but I'll stop there because I think you might have something else to ask me. I don't know.
Yeah, a couple of follow-up questions. So one of the things that I always find so interesting when I'm interviewing people is that so very often, and myself included, we try all kinds of different things on the route to finding the principles. And that was certainly the case for you with NLP and some other things. Was it hypnotherapy? Yeah, hypnotherapy. Yeah.
Louise Hay. I became a Louise Hay teacher. Did all that as well. Yeah. A few things. Yeah, a few things along the way.
And I just always wonder if you can describe what's different about all those different modalities and the 3 principles. And then maybe a follow-up question would be, when you were doing those other things, were there any sort of, I don't know, feelings in you that they weren't quite hitting the mark at the time? Or was it only when you came to this that you saw that?
Yeah, well, for me, what really struck me when I came across the principles and started delving deeper was this is the basis, sort of, this is the building block. These are the building blocks of life. And so the 3 principles are a description of how life works, how we work psychologically, and who we truly are, our true nature, which is formless, the formless and the form. And I suppose I came, when I say I came at it intellectual, sort of in the psychology route, as I said, that's what I heard first, was we're creating, you know, it's an inside out world, we're creating that spirit. And then along the way, I started really dropping into this idea, or this truth now as I see it, that our true nature, our essence is unbreakable. Like we're never, definitely unbreakable. And so what I started seeing was the techniques, let's call them the modalities, like the hypnotherapy or the NLP. Those techniques, there's nothing wrong with techniques. But for me, the principles felt like, and still do, like if we can just see the true, how we work, when we understand how we work, and we understand that insight is the thing that shifts the needle. And that was one of the major things I saw as well, is like when a person has a true insight, that's when things completely change. That's when transformation happens. Whereas a lot of things that, so for example, the Louise Hay work, and I'm not, again, nothing against any of these things have helped me tremendously, and they do help lots of people. But for example, with the affirmations with Louise Hay, you know, I would be helping people create their affirmations. I was using affirmations, but at the same time, I wasn't really believing it. You know, it's something to say, hoping that it would change, but it wasn't coming from wisdom, as we talk about in the print. It wasn't coming from a place for me. It was something that somebody else had taught me to do. It wasn't from me, and it wasn't serving me because it was something that somebody else had come across. I really see, like, Louise Hay obviously had major insights, major shifts in her life, major transformation, then went on to help other people. But what I did see is it didn't work for everybody. I would run the workshops, and, you know, people would have a lovely time, but it didn't seem to stick. You know, they didn't continue with their affirmations. They kept coming back for more, coming back for more, coming back for more. And I get that, because coming back for the nice feeling, and we do beautiful things like affirmation baths, which are gorgeous. People stand around you and just say beautiful things to you. So literally that. But that's in the moment, but it didn't stick. It didn't stick. I can't remember have I answered your question? Have I answered your questions?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I guess the other question was at the time,
Did I see if anything was missing?
yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's it, isn't it? When you see that yeah, there's something missing. There's a piece missing here. Why is it not sticking? Why is it such hard work? I think that was it. Why does it really have to be this hard? That was kind of it. Is it really? Everybody's saying all this stuff, and it also felt as well, with NLP, for example, blasting limiting beliefs was one of busting limiting beliefs. And so, but limiting beliefs, if you like, are forever. Like, they're never ending. And it was like you find another one, and now you find another one, and now you find another one. So it did feel like a never ending job in a way. That there would always be more that surfaced. And coming across the principles for me was it's more upstream than that. It's like, just seeing that it's all thought, and that you don't have to believe any of it, and none of it means anything unless you assign the meaning to it. Just knowing that none of it, I'm not my thinking, I'm not that, I am what the container of it, really, the space within which all that arises. That was huge for me. It was huge for me, and it just, it simplified things. I think it's really simplified things, which I love. I love simplicity.
Yeah, me too. And I can really relate to that, the hard work piece, especially, having been on a similar journey myself. And sadly, the conclusion that I always came to was, I must be doing this wrong. There must be something wrong with me that I can't get this thing to work. And so, that was another part of it for in my experience anyway. Yeah.
I don't actually see any of it wasted. I think it's
No.
all, I really see now that life is working for us, and we just get presented more opportunities and more nudges, and look in this direction. That's kind of where I am at now with it. Yeah.
Nice.
And just to say, and I think with a lot of the teachings that I was listening to before and I was following before, it may just have been the way I heard it, but it was like negative emotion bad, positive emotion good. You
Yeah.
know, positive thinking, obviously the affirmations, it was all about turning the negative into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see it's all welcome. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
room for it all. And that has been really helpful to me. Really, really helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, that's great. One of the things you offered is heart-centered, or coaching for heart-centered business owners. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved that phrase that you use on your website. And so what do you find that is a hurdle that that group of people tends to commonly face in their
Mm.
business ownership?
I would say, I mean, there's more than one hurdle.
Mm,
But the very, very, very common one is I don't like marketing. I don't like selling myself. I don't
yeah.
want to, and I don't want to talk about money, and I don't like the sales. Can you tell me how to do it without doing that? And it's like, yeah, yeah. So that would be, yeah, that would be the major hurdle. Is most heart-centered business owners, you know, they're in the business of healing and helping and service.
Hmm.
They don't like the idea of yucky sales
Yeah.
or yucky marketing. You know, it all feels very sleazy, and you know, so that, you know, that's part of my process when I'm working with people, is to help them get past that, is to
Mm,
see that it doesn't have to be like that, and you don't have to do all the things that you're being told you have to do. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there in sales and marketing, and there's lots of experts that telling you their thing is the best thing, and here's the magic formula, this is the one, this is the only thing you need, and you know, you'll have your 100,000 whatever. And yeah, that's just not true. It's just not true. So
yeah. Yeah. You know, I heard someone say the other day, and I just love this so much, that hundreds of years ago, heart-centered business owners, they would have been the shamans of the tribe, and or the group or the community, and the community would have supported that person in exchange for the healing and everything that they provided. And our culture and our society just isn't set up that way anymore. So now it's on us, to do both things, to bring the healing to the people that we encounter, and to feed ourselves and keep a roof over our heads. And
mm.
I just thought that was such a beautiful way to illustrate the change that's happened for that type of business owner, and what's in their lap or on their plate now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What just sprung to mind then is like, and yet in religion, it still works that way, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even governments support churches. I mean, here in Spain, I don't know what it's like but it was quite a revelation to me when I did my tax return. And if you don't choose to give to another social enterprise, it automatically goes to the Catholic Church, part of your tax return. So it's just, you know, you have to decide which box to tick. And that's like, so it's like pretty, you know, they get a good chunk of money from our taxes. It's like, okay, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And yet in the
Yeah.
healing profession, that's the match. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about your most recent book, which is called Inside Out Transformation. Tell us about the book, and because it's a really interesting structure, and I loved learning about it. And what inspired you to write it?
Mm. Well, thank you for saying my most recent book is my only,
Oh,
my one and only. But yeah, very, a big achievement for me, because um, you know, well, like when I said earlier on, I kind of always had this sense that I would be self-employed and, you know, have some sort of business. Never felt like one day I'd write a book. I don't know, but I wasn't. It's interesting because I don't think I was inspired, apart from I had an inspired idea. I guess
mm,
that's how it happened. So I had this idea that came in, and it was literally interview Sid's direct students, the first generation. Interview. That's all. All kind of the whole idea was that just interview them and create a book around it. And it was one of those ideas that just kept coming back, and it kept coming back, and I didn't do anything about it, and it kept coming back. And in the end, Jack Pransky, who's a friend and colleague, I've organised retreats and trainings for him here in Spain many, many times over the years. And one year, he's an author, authored many books.
Mm-hmm.
So one time he was here, I said, Jack, I've had this idea for a book. Can I run it past you? Yeah. So I told him, and he said, I think it's a brilliant idea, Sheila, go for it. So that was kind of my confirmation. I was like, okay, I've tested the water. He thinks it's a great idea. And he's one of the direct students. He's one of the people that I actually did interview in the end. And he was very helpful because he gave me the list of, I don't know all the names of Sid's direct students. So he gave me a comprehensive list. And basically that's how it happened. And it was like one foot in front of the other. Okay, well, what's the next step? The next step is write to these people, because if they didn't say yes, I didn't have a book. It was like, okay, ask them. And of course, lots of them answered and lots of them said, yes, great idea. And so it was literally just them coming up with some questions and interviewing them on Zoom like we are now, and have the audio and the video, and then I transcribed and edited, and so it went on. So yeah, my introduction, and yeah, and it was published. It took me a long time though. I remember Jack saying at the beginning, oh, it takes me, I can't remember if it said 3 years or 4 years now, 3 years or 4 years to write a book. And I was like, really? But it took me 4 years to get this book from start to finish, at least, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the start of actually reaching out to somebody and saying, will you be part of the book? Yeah, because he said, I remember him saying to me as well, you need to make it a project. And that's exactly what I had to do, because it was always something that came at the end of the, I was running my business and doing all the main, and that would be when I've got time, I'll get to the book when I get time, and then there was never time. So in the end, I had to make it a project. It was like, okay, I've got to get this done. I really wanted to get it done because I was sitting on some really good material, that I knew people would love to read. So yeah, that's how it came about.
Nice. And so what was it about, maybe this is an obvious question, but let's go there anyway. What was it about interviewing those people that had been directly, taught by Sydney Banks that appealed to you?
Again, I don't know. It's just the idea that came to me. It wasn't, it wasn't me that thought that up. It really felt like I was like, oh, okay. And then I could tell you, oh yeah, it's a good idea but it literally was this idea came in. I was like, okay. And now I can justify it in lots of ways. But, one of them being, well, they're not going to be around forever, are they? And the three principles are not going anywhere. and in years to come, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, people really want to hear from these people. So I can see in retrospect what a great idea that, to capture something and have it in a book form, and especially for, it's directed at coaches and counsellors and therapists. So, the practitioners in the field.
Yeah.
But I think it's been interesting reading for people who are not in that field too. They've picked up a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it seems to me that there's something about the lineage and keeping that alive. And, Sid, of course, passed away. And so the next best thing is, talking to those people who were there and knew him and really absorbed what he had to say firsthand, because the rest of us can't anymore, Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Other than through his talks and recorded things and books and that kind of things. Yeah. So you had been following the principles for a while at that point, obviously, when you had this idea.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to hear about what you learned through the process, what you saw. Was there anything that really came to light for you while you were recording the interviews and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think, for me being a coach myself, I was curious to hear. So I had, for example, again, Jack being here, I've been through his coach training many times. So I knew his point of view. I knew how he worked and how he taught and how he works with clients. But I hadn't, and I'd heard a little bit about George and Linda, but the others I hadn't, not so much. So I was really very curious for myself as a coach, to see if I was doing it right. And what came to light as very quickly for me. And maybe it was because I was looking through that lens of, you know, the right way to do this. And, you know, these are the people that have been taught by Sid, were with him, and they must have picked up all the, you know, all the ways of being with people. And what became very clear was there is no right way to do this. You know, really, really, really loud and clear for me. There isn't one way. It's like, you can't say, this is how you coach from the three principles perspective. This is how you know, have therapy sessions with these people when you're, you know, wanting to teach them the three principles or coach from the three principles. It just became really, really clear that there isn't any right way to do this. There are lots of commonality, you know, lots and lots of common threads in the way that they all work. You know, pointing people back to their own wisdom, listening always, rapport is really important, and you know, always coming back to that. But they're not all doing this thing called coaching or therapy or counseling in the same way. They're just not, you know, they're just not. And that was very reassuring. And it has been for people that I've spoken to and for people that have read the book. Yeah, they're very, it's about creating your own art, you know, your own art of coaching, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, that makes me feel relieved. I love hearing that. And
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
that's really great. I'm glad to hear that. And so I just want to do a follow-up then. And was there anything else that you saw or learned, during that process? And it could be too about, you know, what the process of writing a book taught you, maybe about yourself or.
That's curious. What did the process of writing the book? It showed me, I was going to say that I'm slow. It took me so long. And things like it looks easier than it looks easier than it is, that's for sure. And there's a lot more to writing a book, and formatting a book, and editing a book, and proofreading a book, and getting a cover done. And there is a lot more to a book than meets the eye. And I have a lot of admiration for people who write books now and get them out to self-publish and get them out to market. Really, really. I've got a much deeper appreciation of book writing, that's for sure. And also I think but these people that I interviewed, the leaders that I interviewed, just how generous they were with their time and help. And I wasn't surprised, because that's been my experience. But they were, you know, some of them wanted to I edited and sent back and had them obviously all approve their chapters before they went to print. And some of them really went through them with a fine-tooth comb and kept changing it, and is it too late? I just want to change this line. And you know, so really, really dedicated and committed to having the best that they could. Others not so much, you know, they just said, yeah, great job, I'm happy with that. So it was interesting as well to see the different ways of being. But I was just, all of them, just so grateful that they gave me their time, and they were willing to go over it at the end as well and give me their approval for the final cut. And then interviewing them all, you know, pretty much all of them, and giving me more time, and they were very supportive, very supportive. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it must have been so lovely to talk to all those people. I get so much out of these interviews. You know, I always feel like it's such a treat for me every week to talk to somebody. So yeah, it must have been incredible.
Yeah, same for me when I was doing those interviews when I launched the book almost a year ago now. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And do you feel like it's affected your coaching practice at all? In other words, is it sort of helpful to have a book?
As in creating more clients for me, do you mean? Or
yeah, anything.
Very interesting. I was just going to say, I'm not sure, but actually, yeah, what happened? And I had, you know, being a I just call myself a business coach, a holistic business coach. I knew when I was writing this book, I knew that the traditional way of seeing a book is as a big business card.
Yeah.
that's why people write books a lot of the time, it's to get business, and all the things that I read around it. When you write non-fiction, it's all about how you can use that as a platform for, well, this was such a different, as I say, the idea just popped in. It wasn't me trying to do anything, create a strategy around creating clients or anything like that. And nothing, I thought, well, if something just bubbles up and something, again, if I have an inspired idea, I'll follow it. And nothing, I was writing a book, nothing, published the book, nothing. And then I get a message from a woman called Hannah Studley, who is authored a couple of her own books. And she actually wrote me a really nice review for the book. And in the review, she actually said something like, I felt like I went through a coaching course while reading this book. And she dropped this note and said, Sheela, I know you've probably thought about this already. She said, but what do you think about doing a book club around your book? And it had that kind of floated around. It seemed like an obvious thing to do, but it hadn't really inspired me. So I hadn't done anything about it. And I said, well, and I thought, I was curious as well. I thought, why are you writing to me about that? It's my book, kind of thing. What is it? What is it? Why? And she said, because so I wrote back to her and she said, well, I've done a book club around my books. She's got 2 books out by that time. One called Painless. She'd just done a book club. She said, well, actually, I learned that other people were doing book clubs around my book. And I thought, well, if they're doing them, I could do. And I thought, well, she's got a bit of experience. Let me have a chat with her. So we started chatting, and what came out of that talk was actually there was so much more on offer than a book club. And what we did was we created a coaching course between us.
Wow.
And so the Inside Out Transformation coaching course was born, and we actually ran that at the end of last year, December, January, February, I think it was. And it was a huge success. It was amazing. Now, I never in a million years honestly thought that I would be teaching a coaching course. But it went really well. We it filled it up pretty much, and it was online, and people had the amazing, really, really good experiences. We had some lovely, lovely testimonials from it. So yes, in that respect, yes, it has. Yeah, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? And how nice that it just came about so organically.
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. I'm really leaning into that now in life. Is really, it's wisdom led. These things. This is the way. I'm. In my intention is to live from that space. I don't get it right all the time, but yeah, I'm finding that I'm having a lot more fun living in that space. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
me too. Absolutely. Yeah, trying to live from that space. I always describe it as, sort of the other way, forcing things. I tended to be very sort of project driven, and it was like pushing rocks up a river.
Yeah, I get that.
Really hard work. Yeah. And now it's so much less work and so much more joy I experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm 100% for that.
Yeah, exactly. So something else that you've done is you've co-founded the Viva event, which is a coaching, would you call it like a retreat or a workshop?
No. I do organize retreats, but actually, no, the Viva event was born. It was born. It's a hybrid. I think of it as a hybrid between a conference and a party. So it's I'm all for conferences where you sit and you listen and ask questions or whatever might happen. But there's an element of fun and aliveness, and where I live in the world, I live in a beautiful part of the world, and we run the Viva event specifically at the beginning of November, when in Europe the weather is not great in most of Northern Europe, so people really appreciate coming. So where I live, we have the World Health Organization is one of the healthiest climates in the world. So where I live, we have something like 320 or 30 days of sunshine a year. So it's it's not incredibly hot in the winter, but it's sunny and bright, and people really appreciate that when they live in Northern Europe, dark. So that's one aspect of it, and it's up by the sea on the Mediterranean. We've got mountains as well, so people can go trekking. So there's a bit of everything for people. And it is a holiday town, but it's not a really busy holiday town. So there's lots of beautiful cafes and restaurants. So people come, and it's all about connection as well, connection, joy, relaxation. So we have some wonderful speakers. Now, when we first started, Sue and I think it was 2015 was the first one. So we've had a break because of the COVID. We did 14, 15, 16, 17, 15 we started. And really it came about because we saw we wanted to create something in Europe where we would bring European speakers into the room, because we'd had the London conference, which had been going, but there seemed to be bringing mainly American speakers and Canadian speakers over. And we saw sort of a gap, if you like, well, why don't we have some European speakers? So that's how it started. It's not where we are right now, because we do bring in American speakers, but we didn't choose to do that. And that's what I love about my journey with Viva, has been, again, very organic, very wisdom led. It's like the first one that asked us if they could come was Elsie Spittle. So from Canada, and she'd heard about the Viva event. I think it was year 3, and she contacted us and said she was going to be in Europe, and would it be, would we, she was going to come over she was writing a book. She was going to be in Spain on a writing retreat, and could she come visit us at Viva? And we were like, yes, of course you can. And that kind of started the trickle of Americans wanting to come over, and us inviting as well. But yeah, we have sort of a mixture of well-known practitioners, so first generation Zarek students, and more unknown, because just because they're not well known doesn't mean they're not great facilitators. And again, we wanted to include European. I want to be very inclusive, and this year I think we've got a great lineup of diverse speakers, and we want to be very inclusive. So very excited. And we have keynote speakers who are on the stage in the main room. Then we have 3 breakout rooms where breakout sessions will go on in there. And then what I love particularly, are the surprises. So on the program that we give them as they walk through the door, there'll be a surprise here, surprise, and then nobody knows what's going to happen. And we love that element of surprise. So it can be anything from, a singer, or some dancing, or some games, or some whatever. We don't like to let on. Obviously, people come back year after year to Viva. We have lots of returners. So some of them have seen some of the things, that they kind of got an idea of what's going to happen. But we've got loads of new people coming this year that have never been. So very excited to meet all these new people. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And so we're recording this in May 2023. And so Viva happens in early November, correct?
November. It's the 4th. This year is the 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's always the first weekend in November.
In November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so while we're on the subject, where can people go to learn about that?
We have a website called thevivaevent.com.
Perfect. Okay.
Thevivaevent.com. Yeah. We've only got 30 tickets left. So.
Wow. Okay.
I know. It's just been amazing. I think people have missed it so much because of the pandemic. They're like, we just want to get back in the room. Yeah. So yeah, we've only got a few tickets left.
All right. Well, I will put a link in the show notes to that, and maybe people can snatch up the last few tickets.
Yes.
So we're just about out of time. So I wanted to ask you if there's anything you'd like to share that we haven't touched on here today.
Well, first of all, just to say, Joe Bailey, I think you've had him. You're going to have him on one of your podcasts, I believe. So Joe Bailey is one of our speakers at Viva, and just before the Viva event at the end of October, I've organised for him to run a 5-day retreat.
Right.
I think it's called Uncovering the Extraordinary Coach Within. So basically, it's a 5-day coaching course retreat. So I'm really excited about that. So that's one thing. But the other, so I think the main thing, well, it probably ties in, it sounds like I'm promoting all my events, but Jack Pransky has been such a huge advocate and mentor in my life. And he introduced me to deep listening. And I just feel that deep listening is so it's underrated. I think it's totally underrated, and not just as a coach or a helper, a practitioner, but just in life general. In our life generally, that we're not listening to each other. I think there's such there's so much value in really giving people space to be heard, with no judgment, with nothing on our minds. I mean, that's what deep listening to me means, that we're listening and not taking notice of the noise in our heads, but really just taking in what's happening in the space that's created between us, and listening for what wants to be heard versus what we think wants to be heard, right? What really wants to be heard. Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate for that. I really am. I really, really am. So much so that I've set up we've got a retreat in a couple of weeks, actually, on the 20th to the 22nd of May. Jack and I are going to be teaching a 3 principles, which is called perfecting deep listening. Now, Jack wanted the perfecting piece in there. I'm just like, okay, Jack, let's see how we get on with the perfecting deep listening. But yeah, very excited. There's only one place left on that, if anybody gets to hear this before then. But yeah, really, really, the power of it is, it's transformational, absolutely transformational. When people can just sit back, it's like people sit back and relax and just be with you. They have, their transformation in them. It's so healing in itself, just that on its own. I could talk for ages, which I probably will be sharing quite a bit at the retreat. But yeah, just wanted to say the power of deep listening. Look more into that. And Jack, in my book, the first chapter is Jack, and he shares quite a bit about deep listening in there. So, and actually, people go to my website, which you're probably going to ask me anyway.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
It's SheelaMasand.com. You can actually sign up there for the first chapter for free. So you could get Jack's chapter for free if you just go to my website.
Great. Well, that's a fantastic segue. So we can find out more about you at SheelaMasand.com, and I'll put links in the show notes to that as well. And and to the Viva retreat and
the VivaEvent.com.
Event. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, Sheela, this has been so lovely. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Lovely to hang out. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.